Every actor has their own process that helps them get into character, but method acting is one of the more controversial techniques, and it's getting criticized a whole lot more these days. When actors completely immerse themselves in a role, it makes them very difficult to work with, and it can even be extremely dangerous. So today we're counting down the top 10 actors that got called out for over-the-top method acting. Number 10, Jeremy Strong. On the set of Succession, it's known that the actor consistently stays in character as Kendall Roy, and he never gets out of it. In fact, because of this, he was said to have sustained injuries while working on the show, which included hurting his tibia and fracturing his foot, but his co-stars didn't seem to be thrilled by his behavior when the cameras weren't rolling. Brian Cox, who plays Logan Roy, was one of the people who openly criticized him. He was recently interviewed by Town & Country magazine, where he opened up about his thoughts on Jeremy's method acting. He said, "Oh, it's effing annoying. Don't get me going on it. He's a very good actor, and the rest of the ensemble is all okay with this. But knowing a character and what the character does is only part of the skill set. It's just there and it's accessible. It's not a big effing religious experience." For his part, Jeremy acknowledged the criticism and said, "Everyone's entitled to have their feelings. I also think Brian Cox, for example, he's earned the right to say whatever the F he wants. There's no need to address that or do damage control." He also noted that his method acting may come off as difficult to others, but said that there must be room in acting for necessary roughness. Number 2, Shia LaBeouf. The actor is known for going above and beyond for his movies, fully transforming himself into the character that he's playing. For his 2014 war film Fury, he joined the US National Guard and spent a month on the base. Shia starred alongside Brad Pitt, and while the movie received glowing reviews, it was reported that the two actors didn't exactly get along. Shia was apparently so committed to doing justice to his character of Boyd Swan that he had his front tooth removed and went for days without bathing or showering. Additionally, reports claimed that he didn't believe that the makeup used for facial scarring was realistic enough, so he actually cut his own face to make his war wounds, and then during the filming he would occasionally open the wounds to keep them looking fresh and more authentic. Shia said, "I pulled my tooth out, knifed my face up, and spent days watching horses die. I didn't bathe for 4 months." It's clear that he was determined to make an impression, but this allegedly rubbed Brad Pitt the wrong way. According to Ranker, the actor was disappointed by his energy on the set of the film and felt uncomfortable seeing how much torture he would put himself through just to get results. Number 8, Jared Leto. The controversy surrounding Jared's extreme method acting recently came into light with the release of his film Morbius. Jared was well known to be someone who often takes method acting to the extreme and has even been harshly criticized for it by many people in the industry. And it's not difficult to see why. In order to prepare for his role as Dr. Michael Morbius, Marvel's very first on-screen vampire, Jared would reportedly remain in character for the duration of the shoot, even pretending to be disabled in between takes and using his character's crutches even on his bathroom breaks. While speaking to Uproxx magazine, Morbius director Daniel Espinosa actually confirmed this, and he even said that Jared's technique became a problem on set as he would often take too long to move around between each scene. Espinosa then said that Jared had to be given a wheelchair to move around for the sake of speeding him up because his antics on set were actually wasting a lot of time. But this left many people who have seen the film to wonder, was all that for Morbius? I mean, the film was a critical and box office failure, so it's difficult to see how all that extra preparation was worth it. Number 7, Daniel Day-Lewis. Before his retirement in 2017, the legendary performer was known for his intense commitment to method acting. In fact, he would stay in character for months at a time. For the 1993 movie Name of the Father, Daniel prepared for the role by spending 3 days in solitary confinement without any water. He also forced the crew to throw cold water over him whenever they passed by, and the water would have felt even colder considering that he lost 50 pounds for the part, so he would have looked drastically different during filming. For his role in The Last of the Mohicans, which was a movie set in the 18th century, Daniel once again went to extreme lengths in an effort to truly capture the events. The actor lived in the woods of North Carolina, but it wasn't just for 3 days. According to the New York Times, he actually spent a whole month in the wilderness, and in that time he learned how to hunt and skin animals, fight with historically accurate weapons, and try his hand at surviving alone. But not everyone was a fan of his ideas. David Harbour was asked about Daniel's method acting and said, "He's an extraordinary actor, but when he explains his process, it sounds like nonsense." Number 6, Leonardo DiCaprio. During the 2010s, there was a long-running joke about the actor still waiting for his first Oscar win, but this finally stopped in 2016 when he won the award for his performance in The Revenant, a drama about a frontiersman who is forced to survive alone in the wilderness. But what he did to get into that role was incredibly controversial. Leo did not mess around when it came to replicating the survival aspect. To prepare for the role of Hugh Glass, he not only camped out in the wilderness, but he slept in an animal carcass, ate raw bison, and went for regular swims in frozen rivers. In an interview about the process, Leo said, "I can name 30 or 40 sequences sequences that were some of the most difficult things I've ever had to do, whether it's going in and out of frozen rivers, sleeping in animal carcasses, or what I ate on set. I was enduring freezing cold and possible hypothermia constantly. These conditions even led to reports of crew members leaving at certain points throughout filming. Leo knew he was trying to pull off something incredibly ambitious, but he said the director was incredibly specific about what he wanted up on screen, and he would not accept anything less. Number 5. Jamie Foxx. The actor's performance as Ray Charles in the 2004 biopic Ray earned him the Academy Award for Best Actor. The film follows 30 years of the musician's life, particularly during the 1950s and 60s. Since Ray was blind, Jamie agreed to glue his eyelids shut. He even wore prosthetic eyelids for over 14 hours a day during filming. But this was a very scary experience for him. Jamie admitted that he initially freaked out at the experience and even had panic attacks. This was mostly because the crew members left him on set, seeing as they forgot that he just couldn't see. The actor spoke about the experience to the New York Times and said, "There was a period of about 4 days where I was like, what the hell is going on with my body and my mind?" It turns out that trying to adapt to a total loss of sight was a very demanding adjustment, and that took a lot of time. He said, "Imagine having your eyes glued shut for 14 hours a day. That's your jail sentence." But despite his struggles, his hard work did end up paying off as it became one of his most revered roles to date. Number 4. Dustin Hoffman. The actor starred in Kramer vs. Kramer, the 1979 legal drama written and directed by Robert Benton. The film became one of the highest grossing films of that year and earned a whopping $173 million on an $8 million budget. The movie details the messy divorce between Dustin Hoffman's character and Meryl Streep's, and the way their parenting changes as a result. To make their on-screen arguments appear more realistic, Dustin decided to bring those emotions and action to the reality behind the scenes. He reportedly slapped Meryl across the cheek and would yell out some extremely personal insults at her, sometimes even involving her dead boyfriend. So he really crossed the line. But it was his performance alongside Laurence Olivier in Marathon Man that really shows us his method acting. Allegedly, Dustin had been filming a scene where his character had to be awake for 3 days straight. He then decided that this is something he should do if he wanted to get the scene exactly right. This idea really frustrated Laurence Olivier, and he famously said, "Why don't you just try acting?" To this day, that line is often quoted to show the difference in thinking between classical actors and modern film actors. Number 3. Jamie Dornan. The 50 Shades of Grey actor starred in a crime drama series as a serial killer Paul Spector, alongside Gillian Anderson as Detective Stella Gibson. To better understand the mind of his murderous character, Jamie did something that might have gotten him arrested. He decided to stalk a random woman on the London Underground. He spoke to the LA Times about the experience and said, "I followed a woman off a train one day to see what it felt like to pursue someone like that. I kept my distance. She got off a few stops earlier than I was planning, so I said, right, I have to commit to this. I followed her around a couple of street corners and then was like, what are you doing?" If that wasn't bad enough, Jamie admitted that the whole thing felt exciting, even though he wasn't proud of himself. He believes that he did learn something valuable from it. This behavior is exactly the kind that was criticized by Hannibal actor Mads Mikkelsen. He spoke to GQ and said, "It's BS. With preparation, you can get into insanity. How do you prepare for a serial killer? Are you going to spend 2 years checking it out?" Which is exactly the question that method actors should be asking themselves. Number 2. Ashton Kutcher. The actor portrays Steve Jobs in the 2013 biographical film Jobs, which tells the story of the early days of Apple until the launch of the iPad in 2001. Ashton spent many hours researching Jobs' life, and of course his wife Mila Kunis was there to witness his preparation for the role. According to her, it was a very trying time. Apparently, he landed himself in the hospital after trying to mimic Jobs' eating habits. She said, "He only ate grapes at one point. We ended up in the hospital twice with pancreatitis." Mila Kunis completely disagreed with method acting and even called her husband dumb for the lengths that he was willing to go to. For his part, Ashton discussed the pitfalls of the diet in an interview. He said, "First of all, the fruitarian diet can lead to severe issues. I went to the hospital like 2 days before we started shooting the movie. I was doubled over in pain. My pancreas levels were completely out of whack. It was really terrifying." But in the end, his struggles were not actually worth it, considering that the movie bombed at the box office. It was poorly received by critics and audiences, even though he poured his all into the role. And coming in at number 1, Adrien Brody. The actor's stellar performance in The Pianist is one that will go down in history, but it's also known that Adrien heavily relied on method acting in preparation for his role, and he took this to extreme lengths. In a 2003 interview with BBC News, he explained the whole process and said, "I gave up my apartment, I sold my car, I disconnected the phones and moved to Europe." Apart from selling almost all of his possessions, Adrien also lost 30 pounds and broke up with his girlfriend. Because he sacrificed so much in preparation for the film, his mental health also suffered as a result. He said, "I was very disturbed by what I embraced in making that film, and of the awareness that it opened up in me. But when you consider everything that he gave up for the role, it does make you wonder whether or not it was really worth it. Although a lot of people criticize his level of dedication, Adrien said that he did not regret his choices because it gave him a level of sympathy. And to be fair, he didn't exactly walk away empty-handed. He won the Best Actor award at the Oscars and went on to become the youngest actor ever to do so at 29 years old. Well, that's everyone that we have on the list for today. Please let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video.